Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the BVI Pilots podcast. I'm here with Johnny as usual.
Hey guys, how's it going? Glad to be here with everybody.
And we're back with one person who's been on the podcast not too long ago, Jason, but also someone completely new, Andy. And we're going to talk about his role a little bit later on, but hi to both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Jason, you just can't get enough of us, can you?
He's back again.
No, it's good to have you guys on. And Andy, it's good to have you as a new guest here on the show. Really good to have you, man.
It's great to be here.
So Jason, I'll start with you just quickly because we all know about the TFM project, and obviously there's been this development, and Andy's come on board. If you could just tell us a bit about Andy's new role as you see it in the project.
Yeah, sure. So, last time I was on the podcast, I described all about TFM, so I'm not going to do that again. But essentially, TFM is, for the last couple of months, I've been working on porting or converting TFM over to C#. .NET. So it's a fairly large project. Kind of like when I went and looked at the TFM code, I'm like, wow, this thing does a lot. So every one of those functions I have to convert over to C#. So Andy came onto the Discord server and was talking about some ideas for an add-on that he had around flight planning and SIDS and stars and that sort of stuff. And so I messaged Andy and I said, hey, if you're doing this and you're doing this in C#, what do you think about basically rolling your project into TFM? Because it sounds like autopilot features is always something that I've wanted to add, but frankly wasn't sure when I was going to get the time to do it. So we got talking and decided that it would make sense to sort of make them one project. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Okay, cool. And Andy, obviously you're pretty new to the community in the grand scheme of things. If you just want to let people know a bit about your background, how you got into it and coding.
So I have a bachelor's degree in software and application development. I came into the blind pilots community probably, I'm thinking maybe just a couple of months ago. It's not been very long. And, I was totally lost on how to do any of that kind of stuff. Well, I think it was your videos that actually got me introduced to Tramp. And so
glad to know.
Yeah, so I went and checked it out, and it's, okay, this is pretty cool. Well, the more and more I heard everybody up on the Discord server and on email lists and stuff saying that they had problems with Tramp because you had to do
Yeah.
all this nonsense, like NVDA with the review cursor and like NVDA arrowing all around just to find what you want, or if it's like JAWS, then you got to use the JAWS cursor and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it got me thinking, I wonder if you could do something that was more accessible. And so I knew that P3D and FSX had an SDK, but, well, I don't know if I want to get into downloading 3 or 4 gigs worth of documentation and source code just to do something like that or experiment around with it. And so, I had used Talking Flight Monitor a couple of times. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I didn't even know you could do this in Python. Never mind that I had already written an NVDA add-on in Python. And so he had mentioned that he was converting it over to .NET. It's like, well, okay, so I wonder, maybe this is possible. So I asked him roughly how is he accessing the flight simulator, and he had given me a good description of FSUI PC and what you could or couldn't do with it. And, well, I wonder if he could do the same things with stuff that I wanted to do. And so that's kind of like, well, I've been talking to people on Discord about, what do you want if you wanted an accessible version of, say, Tramp or something like that. So it pretty much got people excited. So, then Jason's like, well, how about we just merge things together? And figured, well, it makes sense because some of the stuff that he has, I would need. Some of the stuff that I would make, he would benefit from. So we figured, hey, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when I've had new people come to me and say, "Oh, you got to use Tramp," and they'll say, "Well, I've looked at it. How the hell do I use it?" And you got to explain to them, and it's back and forth, and it's pretty complex, especially for people who've never done it before to learn, as you probably found, Andy. So,
yeah.
I guess if we get down to some more specifics here, question for both of you, we'll start out with, so if you could give us an overall rundown of what sort of features would you like this to have at the end of the day?
So yeah, what I would like to see, ultimately is that we don't have to use Tramp anymore. That's sort of.
I'll give you a clap on that.
A round of applause. Yeah.
Everybody's gonna give applause on that.
Exactly. So Tramp, like Andy said, FS Tramp is usable, barely, but it's not a pleasant experience by any stretch, and so. If we can integrate all of that all the features that the Tramp has, minus all the graphical UI that we really don't need, because Tramp has all the mapping and all that stuff in it, which if you're a blind person doing simming, you really don't need that. So, the idea would be to integrate that and, have the ability to import routes, like import SimBrief routes, the ability to do SID stars, the ability to have it, same as Tramp does, where you hit fly plan and then you give it full power and it takes off for you. The whole landing thing. But basically, yeah, essentially an accessible replacement for Tramp, if is what I would say. And do it in a way that's easy to use. Has hotkeys for everything. You don't have to use the mouse or the JAWS cursor or the screen review or whatever to get to stuff. It's all available by the keyboard and efficient. So you don't have to tab 45 times to get to a to get to. I'm exaggerating, but to get to to an item on the screen, and also still maintain everything that TFM has. So still have access to the A2A aircraft, all that stuff. Hopefully, if things work right, I'd like you not to have to use the Lewis scripts that you now have to use for the A2A aircraft. I still haven't dug into that to see if we're going to be able to get rid of them. We'll see. But that's what I would say.
Jason, can you give us a little bit of a description on it? Someone might be wondering, what's he mean by the Lewis script? Is that what allows us to even access the A2A stuff? Is that part of the code or?
Yeah, so FSUI PC is the layer that goes between external software and either P3D or FSX. So
okay.
In order to access the A2A, which is a company that makes the realistic prop aircraft,
right?
You have to. The way that I've been able to get things to work up to now, or the way that I've been able to get things to work best, is to have a separate script, a separate little program that's outside of TFM that sits inside your FSUI PC directory that sort of relays things in between TFM and the A2A aircraft. So let's see, Andy, do you want to?
Yeah.
Awesome. You're up, Andy. Batter up.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, having all the good features that Talking Flight Monitor already has, I've actually went and asked all of the blind pilot community what they would want to have in it. I have a big, huge laundry list here, but I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Some of the more common features would be the ability to read and be able to read your latitude and longitude being able to have TFM tell you how much time you have left in your route, rather than just how much time is to the waypoint. I think it already does that, because if you do right bracket D, it'll tell you how much time is left. The ability to see how many miles, how nautical miles are left in your route. That's the big one. The ability to see how far off course you are if you're manually flying. So those people who don't want to make the mention of it, but those people who used to play use Eurofly, they used to have a thing where it would tell you, say, bearing 200 degrees, one left, and then you knew that you needed to go 1 degree to the left. That's something that I wouldn't mind seeing in there for the people that manually fly. The ability to see bank and attitude adjustments as I press up, down arrow, or left and right arrows, or move the joystick. As it is right now, it will tell you every now and again. So, the ability to, this is one that was pretty popular, the ability to go directly to a waypoint and resume your course even if your simulator crashes and you lose your flight. So like you could pick up where you left off. Yeah, the ability to use airways to navigate to and from waypoints, because at this point right now, it appears that you can navigate from waypoint to waypoint, but it may veer off of an airway. Yeah, load and, this is a common one. Load and use flight plans from SimBrief, FSX, or P3D, or any other common formats. That's actually one that I'm working on right now. So that's kind of what I would want to see as a whole. I would want to see it as a tramp replacement with some extra benefits and things that tramp may not necessarily have, or that tramp doesn't do as well at.
What about the last thing you were talking about, the flight plans? Now, would you mean as far as being able to just load it straight through the sim instead of, like, what can you, like, give a little more description on that as far as the flight plans?
Yeah, so the flight plans that SimBrief, FSX, and P3D make they're .pln files, and it's common format between all of them, so everyone can read the same format. The way it would work at this point is you would go into, say, SimBrief, you would create your flight plan, you would use SimBrief Downloader to export it, then you could use the add-on TFM to load that, and there's a menu called Plan and then Open, and it will allow you to browse your file system to find a plan that you want. Then you can load that flight plan up into the flight plan section. It will show a list view with all of your waypoints, departure, arrival. There will be a separate section where you can do similar to Tramp, where it will let you assign SIDS and stars if they're available. It will let you see like the speed restrictions and altitude restrictions and all that kind of stuff that you would need to fly before you actually assigned it. And it would also have like a read-only text box up in the top right corner next to the flight plan's waypoint list that will let you see the restrictions of your SIDS and stars, assuming you have them highlighted.
Oh, like if you have an altitude restriction where...
Yeah,
like
so,
on a...
Yeah, so like let's say on your departure you have a SID and it says in your SID that you're supposed to climb to 3,000 feet and then turn left to 180 degrees, do not exceed 190 knots. Then
okay.
If you had your SID highlighted or a waypoint in the SID highlighted, it would display that in the text box. And the same thing with the stars and approaches.
Nice.
So very
nice.
similar. So very similar to what
so
Tramp
it's similar
does
to
now.
Tramp.
Yeah.
It's just a different,
Just way easier to get to.
A
different
lot
layout.
easier to get to,
Yeah.
easier to read it, easier to. You guys are going to have people doing backflips after they listen to this podcast. We're like,
So, yeah. So the current state of what I have at this point is I have on it's going to be a tabbed user interface, so you can press Control Tab to go from one section to another. There's going to be avionics, flight plan, procedures, and find. As far as the avionics part, I'm just about done with the navigational aids like heading, altitude, speed, things like that. I have the comms to do. And then I can move on to flight plan. I'm testing flight plan features in a separate project so I don't muddle things up. At this point, I am able to pull out departure information and put it into a list view off of a Simbri flight plan. So we're making some huge progress on that.
Nice. Wow.
As far as the avionics tab is concerned, you will be able to hit hotkeys like Alt D for enter heading and things like that, and it will just jump you right to the text fields. Right now there's
So you don't even got to. Wow, that's.
Yeah, no, you don't even have to tab around at this point. There are check boxes to allow you to manually override or allow the autopilot to take over. So all you have to do is check the box if you want autopilot to take over that particular thing, like heading. Now, if you, it would be like Tramp. So if you enter 200 into the heading field and pressed enter, then it would automatically uncheck the box
and go to manual. Yeah,
that
very
you don't
similar
have
to
do it
Tramp
yourself.
Yeah.
And
I'm guessing the same thing with the M1 and M2, right?
Yes.
Would that be in there? Okay.
Yes, that will be in there too. At this point, just hitting the hotkey for the check boxes will actually check or uncheck the box, so you don't even have to do anything. All you have to do is just hit the hotkey for it, and it's done.
That's beautiful.
Great.
I mean, it will take your cursor, your focus there, but it will automatically toggle it automatically.
So it sounds like, TFM's all going to be rolled into one, the old features and the Tramp features, and of course, that was my next question on the list, the interface. And obviously, I think there was discussion on the Discord about this. Like you were saying, Andy, it's going to be in tabs, right? You're going to have 4 main tabs, essentially.
Yes, there's 4 main tabs. The avionics tab will be the first one, because it's the one that most people tend to use.
Yep.
That will have the things for changing your heading, altitude, speed, Mach. It'll also have the Mach hold and the checkboxes that Tramp has that lets you take control from it or give it control of that particular navigation aid. It'll have comms 1 and 2, nav 1 and 2. It'll have ADF. It'll have the fly plan 1 and fly plan 2. It'll have the autopilot checkbox. So it'll have all of that. Flight plan tab. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, what I was going to say, one of the things we should say at this point, we're not building in a custom autopilot. So you know how Tramp has the thing where if it can't control the autopilot, you can sort of enable its own autopilot to sort of be a replacement. We're not doing that yet.
Yeah. No, we're not going to be putting in a custom build autopilot yet. So
it's possible we might, but for now, so you might be a little more limited on the aircraft you can use, not anything huge, but yeah, there's something to be aware of. It's a lot of work to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stuff we're doing is a lot of work, but to add a custom autopilot in is a little beyond what we're planning to do at this point.
Yeah. So the flight plan tab will have the waypoints list and the waypoint description if there is one in the text field. It'll have you know how like when you're on a waypoint and you can press applications key, bring it up, and it'll say things like fly plan from here, skip to here, jump to here, or whatever else they have. That context menu will have the same type of things in it, but I think what I'm going to do is it will be more descriptive and easier to understand what it means, you know.
Right,
so
like exactly what it is.
Yeah, so like fly plan from here may say
direct, something like
direct,
that.
Or express to here or something, rather than fly plan from here, because that language can be somewhat confusing. And then you have the procedures tab. You know, that's where you can assign SIDS, stars, approaches, runways for airports that don't have SIDS or stars. And then you have the find tab. So Tramp has this thing where you can find anything in the Navigraph database and add it to your flight plan. So that will have that kind of thing, like if you want a waypoint or you want to change airports, which brings us up probably to the next question. What about flying a deviated route? And at this point, we probably are not going to put that feature in, but it is on the things to do. So I
would be able to go to a different location.
Yeah, so like if you're going from Boston to Philly and air traffic control tells you Philly's closed because of bad weather, you should be able to plop in another airport and say go to here. And it would just automatically express you to that airport. At which point you should be able to pick again a new star, a new approach, new runway, that type of thing. And
right. I guess to give my 2 cents on that, because there are other options, even if an airport is not landable, you know, you could either, let's say, so you might fly a hole at a waypoint. Tramp can do that currently, or you can also fly missed approaches, which Tramp can't do currently. Are either of those possibilities, do you think?
So flying missed approaches, actually the Navigraph database has descriptions for missed approaches and what to do and what not to do. It's part of the SIDS and stars missed approaches and things like that. So the idea is if the missed approach is just a bunch of navigation aids like fly to this altitude, go this heading, go to this latitude and longitudinal marker, then there would be a way to have it do that.
Yeah.
And we should mention, I mean, we've sort of talked about it briefly, but we should mention that we do now have access to the Navigraph dataset.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was another thing on the list. Yeah, I was good. Yes, the next question says, awesome. What have you already achieved? So obviously, you've talked about that and Navigraph, so people are going to have, most people I think have that.
At this point, auto route generation is not on the radar because there is so much stuff to do.
Oh yeah, and personally that doesn't bother me too much because SimBrief generates very good plans as it is.
So Andy and I talked about it, and in auto route generation, like I said, there's so many different options. I mean, SimBrief or other Tramp does auto route generation, but I don't see any reason that we need to do that.
Because most people usually use SimBrief or something like that anyway.
Yeah. So I think what we're trying to do is get sort of the key features in, to a point where somebody can sort of start working with it, and then once we do that, we'll start to add some of those
kind of just touch and go. Yeah.
Let's try and get the Tramp type of features that people would commonly use out of the way, and then focus on some more of these custom things.
Yeah, kind of the bonus custom stuff on the side, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Get it to a stage where you can say do a bog standard, simple VATSIM flight A to B, as we would normally do with nothing, no emergencies or no problems going off. Then we can look at the extra stuff.
Yeah.
That might be nice
I told Declan earlier, and he's probably got it on the list. I'm sure he does. But as far as the app or program itself, you guys expect this to be something that will always be a free program, or, I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on that?
It will always be open source. It will always be for free, other than the Navigraph subscription models that people might want to pay for.
Right, right.
Other than from our end, everything will always be free and open source.
Because you still got to have Navigraph to, even with the new one that you guys do, they will still need Navigraph.
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't change that.
Right.
We might be able to offer, and I don't exactly know, Andy, maybe you do, but how Navigraph does this, we might be able to offer a free Navigraph data set, like just a single, one-off, we'll give you one cycle. And then, because I think a lot of other apps do that. I'm not sure if we have to have an agreement with Navigraph on that or how that works. So when they had gotten back to me, they gave me an initial data set to work from to test with. That is Eric Cycle 1908. And so that will come free with the app. Aside from that, you will need to upgrade.
And it's the same with Tramp, I believe, because that has 1905. It's usually a year.
Yeah, Tramp comes with 1905. So if you needed to update it, then you would need a subscription.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. That makes sense.
Is that like the 2009 Eric cycle, or is that something different?
So 1908, that's from, I believe,
August 2000.
August of 2019. So it's from a year
pretty much a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
nice.
So the software will work, with that data set. But then, as Andy was saying, if you want the most current stuff, you need, which I think most of us have.
I think so, yeah. And I'd say anyone can fly with the old stuff offline. It's only if you're really desperate and you were to be short for cash, then absolutely you can. It's just VATSIM really where you need to have the up-to-date stuff.
Yeah, no, I think, because having the Navigraph data set is going to be a huge deal, for people. It gives us so much more flexibility in what we can do, because we couldn't really do any of this stuff, like any of the flight plan stuff that we're doing without it. So it's going to work really well.
I bet the question that a lot of people's thinking right now is, when will I see this?
No dates.
No.
And I don't expect a date, but people's asking it, so I've got to put it out there. I mean, I'd
like to get something that some people could test, even if it's just, the functionality that TFM had without all the new stuff. I'd like to get people something to test, to play with fairly soon. Like I said, even if it doesn't have all the new stuff,
right?
Because we are essentially rewriting everything, from scratch. So, I can't say exactly when that's going to be. I mean, I'm working on it, whenever I have time to. Just so people sort of understand how we're doing this. So right now, Andy is working on the UI and all the new navigation stuff. I'm working on converting everything that TFM did to C#, and I'm making pretty good progress. I just got runway guidance working yesterday, which was a pain in my butt to get working under C, but I got it. So that's working now. I'm hooking up all the hotkeys. I'm making sure all the instruments read that used to read. I'll do all the A2A stuff. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stuff to convert. But it's going. The good thing is it's going well.
You came a long ways, man. I mean, honestly. I can tell. So where things are right now, like if you were to, and again, this is all open source, right? So if people are adventurous and want to try this like right now, you can. It's you go to it's github.com/jfayre /talking-flight-monitor-net is the full address, and so that will get you to the GitHub page, and you can download it and compile it and run it, and it will, if I haven't broken anything on my last commit, it will.
It'll hopefully compile and run. Anything.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, we don't want nobody out there, though, to go and grab that and think, okay, I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to ask Jason and Andy 1,000 questions on it.
Nope.
I just want to be clear on that, because I know that's what you guys are.
Until it's
like,
official release.
Yeah. No, but again, like, it's open source. So, but because it's open source,
just remember that
until we say that it's stable, you can download it, and if it breaks, you get to keep both pieces.
Yeah. And all of the terror that came with it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But however, I mean, what I can say is, right now, the user interface is partially there. Nothing's hooked up yet. So if you put like numbers in the heading boxes and stuff, nothing happens. But if you, like all the different toggles, like when switches go on and off, battery master, avionics, all that stuff. There's like 20 or 30 something toggles. Those all read. The runway guidance reads. A bunch of the hotkeys work. What'll happen if you hit a hotkey that's not implemented yet? It'll literally say not implemented. So you'll get a little speech message that says no, this isn't hooked up yet. But I mean, there's a fair bit of stuff that does. I mean, the like I said, runway guidance, SimConnect menus are reading to a point. There's things like there's issues like with the radar contact menus where the second line of the menu changes all the time to indicate your nearest waypoint. Right now, that will trigger the menu to read every time that changes, which we don't want.
Right.
But,
right.
But like GSX menus read. So I mean, we're getting there.
And so for new pilots or people who are unsure, what's the best way to keep up to date or contribute to possible feature ideas, discussions of the new TFM?
So I mean, there's the email list, is the BVI pilots list. There's the Discord server. There's an issues section on GitHub. I'm a little reluctant to have people post anything there yet until we sort of declare that it's somewhere near stable, because people could very well be posting things there that we're already planning to do.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking maybe not that, but if there's things that people really want, like somebody on the Discord asked to add things like the gauges on prop planes, like cylinder head temperature and exhaust gas and RPM and all that. And so those are things that we already have for the A2A planes, but we don't have them for the built-in planes, like the C-172s and the Moonies and stuff. So the idea is I'm going to add those because they're pretty easy to add, and for whatever reason I just never did them before. So that's really easy. That's something really easy to do.
Yeah, and Andy, I think there's the add-on dev channel in the Discord, right? And that's where most of the discussion on the sort of tramp functionality that's going to be built in is taking place at the moment.
Well, one thing I want to add about where we're currently at, actually a couple more things. There's been people asking about taxiing, manually being able to taxi yourself, because at this point, PF3 can give you some guidance, but it's not enough guidance to get you anywhere. I'll say this from a source code point of view, it's entirely possible if we have the latitude and longitudinal boundaries for the taxiways along with their names. Now, how practical will it be? I don't know yet. So,
yeah.
That is something that will definitely be looked at sometime down the road. I don't know how long. Sometime after it's been released, probably. And the next thing is airplane checklists that I've been asked about those.
I was getting ready to ask you about that.
Yeah,
is that ever going to be possible?
So, airplane checklists. For the A2A airplanes, I think Jason can probably talk more to that if he wants them implemented.
I think we got that on last week's podcast, didn't we? That at the moment they're text files.
Yeah, so from what he said, they're nothing more than XML files. that he converted into text files as
Exactly.
far as, so that one is entirely possible to just check off, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. Okay, I'm ready to go. And problem is with a lot of the other planes, like your A320s and 787s and things like that, CRJs, that type of thing, probably not practical or possible at this point because they show up in the kneeboard, and at this point we have no way to access the kneeboard to be able to pull that stuff out.
Yeah, and because TFM's going to utilize the main sim autopilot, and that means pretty much you're limited to freeware aircraft, which is not a problem. We got some great freeware planes, but they don't model all the systems like some of the higher end payware ones do. So having a whole checklist for an A320, our A320 probably wouldn't be able to model all those systems because it's freeware.
My philosophy with TFM has always been I'm not going to I don't necessarily want to guide people through things. I think simming is a challenge and should be a challenge. But I also, I'm also not going to give you hotkeys for things that the sim already has, because there's no point in doing that. If you can define them in the sim, define them in the sim. So that's kind of been, but the whole point of TFM has always been to give you access to things you don't already have.
I'm gonna clarify that we won't reproduce anything that's already in the sim. However, somebody on Discord was saying, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that they can just press B to change their altimeter in the sim. That's fine. You can change the altimeter, the altitude, the heading. You can do that all in the sim. For an example, you can do Control Shift H and then hit the plus and minus to change the heading, and then you can do Control H to lock it once you get it where you want it. You can do that, and actually I've extensively tested it, and TFM in its existing release actually reads this stuff out flawless, like a dream come true.
Because actually, and Andy's absolutely right. So like with the feedback that TFM gives you, you actually can take off and like fly around without tramp. You just can't necessarily land, and you can't follow a route. But if you want to just take off and set your altitude lock and climb to a specific altitude and stuff like that, you can do that with existing in-sim keyboard shortcuts. Like you've always been able to do that. It's just TFM reads when you set the various things.
Yeah, so the idea, though, is the one time that we do provide an alternative way to do that is because it's not exactly easy to hit plus and minus.
It's time-consuming, isn't it, to scroll all the way round?
Yeah, and part of that, too, is when I've been experimenting around with it, if you have autopilot turned on and it's set to heading 200 and you change the heading to 160, then he might change it back to 200. And so TFM right now will let you turn on a mode where you can input values into the autopilot through the user interface that we're making, and that's what those avionics tab is for.
Yeah, it just simplifies it.
Yeah,
for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
I think it's all awesome. And we'll definitely get you back on as you develop this and as we go through the stages of it to discuss, because I'm sure there's going to be new ideas after we got the initial release out and all that. So we'll definitely kind of have you as an active, development and do interviews every couple of months or whatever it may be.
Yeah, because
I think. Oh, sorry, Johnny.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I think one of the things that would be useful too is once we get the user interface, and all that stuff a little more polished and functional, actually, recording some stuff about us actually going through the system and using it. So, with audio, like with flight sim audio, so people can hear exactly what it is and what it does. I think would be useful.
And if they got questions if you guys have a question for Jason or for Andy or anything to do with this, you can email us and we will get that email. We will look at it, and next time we have them on, we will ask them those questions. However, do not send a book to us. Don't send us a book, please. There's a particular person that they send books instead of questions, and I'm not going to read a book. I don't know about Declan. Declan might want to read a book.
No, I don't have the time. We're going to have to put a limit on how many lines these emails can have in them.
Man, I'm telling you, if you only knew the emails that we get sometimes.
Yeah.
But send us questions. We'll get them over to Jason and Andy, and
absolutely, Discord mailing
try to
list,
get that answer
there
for you.
Yep.
Discord's the best place. Discord's probably the best place to ask questions directly. That way we both see it and we both can respond to it. So
yeah, I know Discord's kind of very day to day, the very inside of it. The mailing list is a bit more kind of maybe big updates are posted there, but not as sort of the nitty gritty details of features.
Just so I don't forget, it was someone had asked me the other day, and I said, well, next time I can't remember who had told me to ask, but talking flight monitor as of now, no more updates, correct? What it is now is what you're until the new release comes out for what you guys are doing.
That's my plan. That's my plan. If somebody comes to me with something that's like horribly broken, I might think about I'll think about fixing it. But if it's just adding a feature, I'm not going to add things to the Python version at this point because
just have to do it again.
I'll have to do it again in the new version. So. I don't think we're that far off from getting something that people can work with. Again, no dates, but I don't.
Right.
We're not we're not like a year out or something.
No.
Right.
No. It would be sooner than that, but yeah, no dates.
Yeah. And again, guys, as Jason told you earlier, it is open source. If you want to access it, you can, but don't be blowing these guys up over emails and stuff saying, hey, this ain't doing this or not doing that. It's open source, so that's why they're saying, hey, if you want to, it's there. But there's no support behind that, just so you guys know.
Yep, exactly.
Trying to protect you guys a little bit.
And also, if there's somebody listening to this podcast that has tons of development experience and wants to help out, get in touch. Maybe there's something we can have you do. So we're always open to people.
Is any of this connecting, real quick, to the flight management system at all, or is that something separate?
That's something separate. So one of the things I talked about, Andy, I don't know if you've heard, but one of the things I talked about is accessing the Pmdg flight management system, because you can actually get access to that through FSU IPC. You can read all the text out of the FMS and stuff. And so I was thinking that it might be possible to interface with that in the future, but I think we're not there yet. I think I want to get all this stuff done first, because that's going to be a big deal.
Because there's a lot in there, a lot that can probably do.
Oh yeah, there is. So, so it's something that I'm looking at, but it's nothing that I don't want to do anything with just yet.
And
gotcha.
Just to let people know. Really quick at the end here, the newer version is a lot faster. I was actually testing it out about 4,000 foot off of the ground in Boston the other day, and writing down some things, and it's like 100 million times faster, because when you hit right bracket and then see, sometimes there's a small delay before it reads the closest city. And when I was doing it during my test flight, it was like instant. The minute I hit C, it was almost done reading the city. So it's like, it's lightning fast.
That's amazing.
Well, and part of that is we now have access to, and I think actually the default right now is to access the nearest city info offline. So it's actually querying an offline database. So it's not going online for that right now. So that's that. I mean, it is faster, but that's one of the reasons why that particular thing is a lot faster.
Yeah, but even reading the some of the gauges like heading and speed and stuff, it's still a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you going over the numbers with me one day, Andy, talking about how fast it was, and it was like 500 or so, I can't remember what you said, but it was amazing. Like, you know, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to remind people you can go over. Jason, I don't know. I'm thinking you have a donate button on your page, right? BVIpilots.net. Do you have a donate button over there?
It's on the GitHub page actually.
Okay.
But we actually need to talk about that because it's now there's now two of us. So yeah, we haven't talked about how that's going to work yet.
Yeah, we'll have to talk.
Well, no, I'm sure we will, but I just have to figure out
you
know, is it a PayPal account we both have access to? Well, what do we do about that? So
right.
We'll have to talk about that.
Well, and if anything, you guys can put, you know, one button there and split it, or put two buttons there, one to one, what's the other, whatever. But, you know, but definitely, you know, whenever anybody can donate for the work that you've done so far, Jason, and work that you've done, Andy, you know, keep that in mind, and, you know, they'll get that figured out on how they're going to do it. But, you know, I just want to remind people that, you know, it does help, and it does, you know, it takes time for you guys to do all this. It's not just like, well, I'm going to get up and I'm, you know, 20 minutes, I'm going to fix all this. It's hours and hours and hours of coding.
So like yesterday,
you know.
So just as an example, yesterday I spent 3 hours getting some of the pipeline for the flight plan stuff ready and loading a sample flight plan.
Yeah, this is time-consuming stuff. Obviously, anything they got to spare.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, coding. Period. Coding is time-consuming. Even when I did like just basic HTML coding, like it's all timing. You know, it takes time to do all that stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
We appreciate you guys coming on with us again.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming
great
on.
to be here.
All right, and we'll see you in the next segment. All right, hello guys, welcome back to the second segment of the podcast after the interview, where we just cover any latest news or topics that have come up over the past few weeks. The first one that I wanted to talk about is something that's been around for quite a while, and it's kind of linked to something else. So yesterday I did with a friend of mine a JoinFS shared flight deck experience, and if people aren't sure what that is, it's essentially, and it's, you know, something me and Johnny are looking at doing at some point if we can get it up as a video for you all to watch, because I think it'd be cool. It's basically where you join the other person's aircraft on a network, and you are able to be a co-pilot for them. You choose who's going to be the pilot in command. We're using FS-Tramp obviously at the moment, and the other person will operate the gear and flaps and spoilers, and of course if need be you can log on to vPilot and do the comms as well. And this was done over a pretty good internet connection. My internet connection was actually not doing so well with it, but I recently got a Shadow remote gaming PC. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but it is very good for flight sim. And if you want to learn more, you know, drop on my channel. I did a video about it, but you know, I won't talk about it because it's not really related to flight sim. But it worked out really well with JoinFS because it requires a lot of internet. So it's definitely something me and Johnny are going to look at doing. And if you want to help someone who is new, or you just want to enjoy flying with your buddy, jump on there and you'll be able to hear and experience the same part of the aircraft at the same time.
I've always said it would be a heck of a way to train somebody that might be a new BVI pilot. You know,
absolutely.
If you knew how to use that good enough to where you could go in there and let them fly, and if they're messing up, you got the same controls. Because I correct me if I'm wrong, Declan, you can set it to where both have the same control too, right? Or is it just one side or the other?
So you can only have one person control the flight plan in the autopilot, but the good news is you can switch it mid-flight. So let's say Johnny was controlling the FS Tramp side of it and I was just doing the flaps and gear. If Johnny had to go somewhere in a rush, or he was struggling with something with Tramp and I said, oh yeah, I know how we do this, or if it was the other way around, whatever it may be, you can switch the roles in the application. And then the other person, takes over the opposite role. So it is changeable on the fly.
That is really cool. That is really cool.
Absolutely. So the other thing, I'll let Johnny do this one. We've covered it before, but FS 2020, Tuesday.
Do not. Let me say this very clearly. Do not waste your money, your time, because it is not going to work. There's been people that have told me and Declan specifically that there's no accessibility to it. So why bother? If you do, guys, don't come and ask us how to do something, because we done told you. Don't buy it. It's not ready.
So there are a few people who are going to try it on Game Pass. Game Pass basically means you rent the game for a month at a very low cost. They're going to try it just for the hell of it. We've been told there's no accessibility. I guess they just want to confirm that for themselves. There probably isn't going to be a podcast next week, since we've done 2 in a row, in 1 week after the other. But if there is any accessibility, of course there'll be a podcast. If not, assume that it's not accessible. And as we say, we've been informed reliably by people who are in the alpha and beta stages of testing that they have seen absolutely nothing.
Exactly. If there's accessibility, it's not for us. You guys got to remember something. Accessibility can go a long ways, and it can be put in many different ways. So it can be accessible to the colorblind. It can be accessible to someone that has low hearing. It can be accessible to, there's different reasons. It can be accessible to someone that's never flew a plane before, because it is accessible for that. If you've never flown, but not for us. If you've never flown and you're visually impaired, it's not for you. If you've never flown and you've got sight, it is accessible for you. So you got to take that with a grain of salt when you think about it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it right now, guys. Don't do it. That's
absolutely. Yeah. That's the conclusion the podcast gives you, and we try and give you the facts, and that's the fact. So the next thing is the Fs0 Data. I want to talk a little bit about it. For those of you who update your navigation data in the sim, you'll know there's 2 options. There is a free website, and there is Fs0 Data, which is a paid service. Fs0 Data... Yeah. They've not had the smoothest of experiences, unfortunately, over the past couple of months. I'll give you a little list here. So me, Johnny, Brandon, Josh, who else? Anyone else? Thomas.
Yep.
Thomas. Have all had issues installing it for various reasons. And it's caused problems. Either they've deleted files or they've not added entries to the scenery.cfg as they should. And so I advised Johnny, and I would advise people now, especially if you don't want to spend any more money on flight simulation, to use the free site. It's a little bit more manual in its install, but it does update all the nav aids, runways, and it also allows, of course, for you to continue installing your third-party sceneries that might have improved gates as well.
And technically, when you speak on a manual, the manual side of it, the only thing that's manual about it is as far as you download it and unzipping it.
Yeah,
once
that's
you
all.
unzip it and run
I've got an auto installer.
It's doing it automatically, just like the other one does. Same thing, because with the other one, you still got to download the updates. You still got to install it. You're doing the same thing, only it's free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Declan, you seen when Declan, he came in, he remoted with me, and like I was missing all kinds of files, several files that he had that I didn't have, and I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not. So, if you want to pay, go ahead, but it's not guaranteed you're not going to have problems, and hey, why pay if you can get it for free?
Yeah. Now, just for balance, I'll talk a little bit about Fs0 Data because I want to, keep the podcast about the facts. So, what does Fs0 Data supposedly offer that's better? Well, it updates your COM frequencies for you. That is really only going to be a factor if you're using some third-party ATC add-ons. It won't affect VATSIM because they have external frequency setups anyway. Now, Fs0 Data apparently has been updated. They've changed the format and improved the tool over the past few days. I'm not entirely convinced, but I have to say I haven't tried it, so I don't want to say it's junk at the moment. But I'm just going to point out to you, if you think you've spent quite a bit of money on Flight Sim, it is not essential to use Fs0 Data. The free nav aids work just as well, and I have to say, whilst Fs0 Data I've had issues, the free nav aids I have never had an issue. They install every time, and it's pretty much as soon as the Navigraph AirAct comes out, within a couple of hours, maybe a day at most, this is a one guy project, he will update his site with the installers. You can get them, and so
it's not 3 or 4 days. It's maybe a day. It's not 3 or 4 days.
It's just under a day last time. This month, so it's really not that long.
Do you know, did I install that after the update or before?
I think you might have done it before, actually. We should have double checked
I need to
that.
go.
Probably need to do it again.
But it's once you do it though, it's not that bad. And the other thing to say real quick too, Declan, is that when he installs it, it actually places the files where they need to be in your actual SIM, not outside of your SIM.
Yeah, so the way Fs0 Data used to do it is create a folder in your documents. I am told they have changed that now, but I don't know. The way this tool, the free tool, is going to do it is it's actually going to update the scenery files in your simulator. So it's not placing files outside. It's going to do them right in your simulator. And it's very reliable doing that way. So
yeah,
it's an alternative, definitely, and I would say in some cases it's better. So I would personally recommend it.
Yeah, me too. And you might say, well, what if I'm doing an event? Am I going to get the runways that I need? If if you don't have it, you can get it. I mean, you just go online and find what airport you need. Download it, and there you go. You're done.
Yeah, so this corrects runway. It does exactly what Fs0 Data does. It corrects runway headings. So let's say maybe in the old sim FSX or P3D, because it's out of date, you've got a runway 27, and obviously because the way the world works, the magnetic heading is going to shift. It might switch to being runway 28. It will update that and call it the correct name. It won't say add a new runway that was built because it can't change the scenery. Neither can Fs0 Data.
Right.
But for that you would have to download new scenery. Which is very freely available on things like Flyaway Simulation, so not a problem at all. So the other thing that I was going to touch on was Saturday, the BVI Pilots event. It's a final reminder. Johnny, your event, so I'll let you do it.
Yeah, guys, so the event is coming up. It's going to be matter of fact, it's this Saturday coming up, right? This Saturday.
Yeah, 22nd.
Yeah, the 22nd. And this is the last call to let you guys know that if you're going to be a part of that event, you need to go to bvipilots.com. The form is right there. If you miss it, something's wrong. Go back because it's right there on the front page. Someone told me it wasn't there, and I'm like, it's there, I promise. It's right there on the front page. You go down, it's right there. Go there, put your information in. it's you pretty much got all day to do the flight. Just get it done by a certain time. I'm going to be doing a video probably as well, Declan. So if they want to get more facts on it, they can also go to the BVI pilots YouTube page.
Indeed, yeah, and I did one as well.
Let me while we're here, I might as well go ahead and just give you one fact of it. Here is the order of your flight. It's going to be, you're going to start out in California, which is KLAX. You're going to be flying to Calgary. I don't know that flight. Do you know the airport code for that? I don't have it.
Charlie, Yankee, Yankee, Charlie.
Okay, so CYYC. And then your second flight's going to be from Calgary. I guess I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
CYYC to Detroit, which is Detroit. I got it here somewhere.
KDTW, I think.
KDTW, yep, KDTW. And then from Detroit, you're going to be going from Detroit to Boston. So KDTW to it's BOS, isn't it? BOS,
yeah, KBOS.
I think. Yep, KBOS. And then your last flight will be from KBOS to Dallas, KDFW. I believe it's Dallas. Yeah, yep. KDFW.
Fort Worth.
And you've got pretty much all day to do this flight. I mean, it's better if you can get up that morning and start. The only thing we're still trying to figure out for sure is how we're going to be able to see your flight data as far as how you did on your reports. If you're using Toolkit, I think there's a way. I think it might save your reports. I know Ideal does use it, does save a report. So if you have Ideal Flight and you're using that, you can just save a copy of that. You can go and view your flight after you're done and just save it. Well, you're going to need to save every one of them flights individually. It's not going to save like all 5 of them at once. Individually save them.
Yeah.
Because we're going to need that to look at.
And of course, the benefit I think for people using Sim Toolkit is I think Ideal saves them as text files, and whilst we trust all of you, editing a text file to make it look like you got a better landing rate is a very easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so keep it fair. Don't.
Well, we're gonna know if all your landings are like perfect. I imagine there'll be a few questions as to how you've managed to get perfect flights every time. Everyone makes little mistakes on the flight.
Yeah, we're going to know as just being, doing the simming thing all the time. And not only that, but there's a real pilot that's going to be looking, and he's definitely going to know if something looks off. He can be like, wait a minute. I can't even do it like that. How are they doing it?
Yeah.
Right? So,
absolutely,
I mean, landing is pretty, for a real pilot, once you learn how to land and you've got the right, you've got that experience, landing is pretty the same, as far as once you learn how to do it, you know how to do it, and that's it. But there's a lot of other things. So we'll be able to tell, like you said, Declan. We're going to be able to tell.
Yeah.
Keep it honest, people. Don't ruin it for yourself, because then if we found out that you was cheating, well, then and you might have ended up winning because you cheated. Well, now you're not gonna get anything.
Oh yeah, so, and there are ways. I mean, of course, if it's logged on STKP, you'll be able to see the time, and if the date modified on the file, say, was different to the time when you did the flight, then you'll know that it's been tampered with.
And keep in mind, we will be able to see your flight through VATSIM. So,
yeah, we can check that as well on the time. So.
Yep, we can look at the data there, and it's gonna let us know. So
it's got to match
keep
up.
It real, people. Keep it real. Have fun. It's really about having fun.
Absolutely.
I'd like to do more stuff like this more often for the BVI community, but it's all about time. When everybody's got time to do it. So, anyways, that's what that's going to be. Have fun. Make sure you fill out that form. If you've not been to the page and filled it out, and you just plan on dropping in and doing it, that's not the way it works. Complete the form. We got to have your email with your name, email address. That's the basics of what we got to have. We got to have that, and then try to give us your time zone so we know where you're located.
And the one thing I would say is, obviously there's 3 prizes. If there's one that you know, if you win, say, the yoke, and this is my situation, I know in terms of space and my desk setup, that a yoke might not be as practical. I would imagine you want people to let you know. Don't just accept it and then leave it on a shelf. If you want a different prize, maybe that can be negotiated.
Yep. It can be switched out. So let's say that Declan got first place, and he said, John, it'd be nice to have that yoke, but I think I'll do better with just sending me the flight stick. Then that's something that we can work out, something we can arrange.
Because we don't want to
send you.
It.
Yeah. We don't want to send. I mean, you got to figure that the yoke is a $250 piece of equipment. We don't want to send that to you if it's going in the closet, or under the desk. We want you to use it. And when you get tired of using it, pass it down the line. Do an event. Let someone else,
absolutely.
Just a thought. You don't have to. It's yours. It'll be yours, but it won't be yours if you plan on just throwing it to the side. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing here on the list is something for you FSX users. We all know that TFM in the past has had some issues reading the SimConnect menus, say from GSX, and it's always been really doable in P3D, and it's something I've wanted for a long time. Well, actually, it was never really a TFM limitation, it turns out. Jason did a bit of digging, and it turns out there's a line, and it's going to be your fsuipc4.ini file in modules of the simulator folder, and there's a line in there called new intercept text menu equals. And that's currently probably going to be set to equals no. You want to change it to equals yes. And then TFM, as in P3D, will be able to read out all the GSX menus just the same. So if you have FSX through Steam, I know John is looking at that, don't worry about that. It's going to be there. It's not an FSX limitation. So it's good to know for all of us.
Oh, it makes it so basically when they go in there and change that to yes, it makes it readable?
Yes, it actually was an FSUI PC thing that TFM wasn't able to pull it. So now it's set to yes, TFM can pull that. So the GSX menu, the Active Sky weather requests, any ATC software you use are all going to read in FSX just like they would in P3D as well.
Okay, and tell them where to find that one more time.
So for me, I'll give you the exact file path. It's going to be C program files x86, Steam, Steam apps, Common, FSX, modules, fsuipc4.ini. If you've got a search tool like I do, I use one called Search Everything. But any search tool that allows you to quickly search all the files, just put in fsuipc4.ini and it'll come up, and you're looking for a line that says new intercept text menu and change it to equals yes. If you don't have the line, add the line, and as a note, you do need a registered version of fsuipc4 or 5, so it's got to have a .key file in there. If you're using the free version, this isn't going to work either, so that needs to be on.
And some of you are using 6, so if you're using 6, you're probably good too.
Yes, I believe I believe they're interchangeable. I believe if you've got a key for 5 or 6, it can probably go down to being a key for 4 as well. So if you were to switch to so for example, Johnny's situation, because he's probably got an FSUI PC5 key, he ain't got to repurchase it. When he changes to FSX, all you do is rename the file to fsuipc4.key, and it's going to work the same because it's a key is universal.
Same way,
yeah.
Okay, nice,
Absolutely.
nice.
So yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed the pod.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah, it is. Another little gem of FTFM that.
So now all your menus are readable. That's
yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And GSX, that's a pretty big thing for us FSX users, because we had to use OCR to read the GSX menus for a long time, and now we don't.
Not anymore.
No, that's right there for you. Yeah, it helps out. And then actually, it can also... So what it actually does, I forgot about this. If you set vPilot to show text messages in the sim, when someone sends a message on Unicom, say they send a message saying, taking off runway 27, whatever. instead of it just making the sound and you have to go check in the edit box, TFM will read that message out directly in the sim window. It's just going to read it straight away.
Does that connect with VATSIM?
Yeah, it's basically so VATSIM sends it through FSUI PC to the simulator, and it will show up in the simulator window, I believe. But before, because it couldn't connect, but now it can. So TFM
That's
will read
amazing,
those
dude,
messages.
because the P3D simmers, all of us, we don't get that luxury. We've got to actually Alt-tab over onto the vPilot and read the message.
Really? Oh,
Lucky you.
I believe there is
Wow.
a setting. So yeah, make sure that vPilot you've got. I think it shows text messages in Sim. Make sure you have that checked. I mean, people feel free to try it in P2D. I don't think I have, but it definitely works in FSX. I can tell you that. So it's very cool. Just changing that one-liner yes gives you a lot of functionality.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. A great interview as usual, and some tips for you there. We will be back, I imagine, in 2 weeks' time, unless something big happens. Because this week we did a pod a week later because we wanted to get Andy and Jason on, and
yeah, we've been busy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we'll be back in 2 weeks as usual. BVI Pilots Podcast at gmail.com. This will go to all the usual areas. Spotify, Google
We're working on
Podcast.
Apple. We don't know.
We don't know why it's not
why
working.
it's not on there, but we're
getting
going to
to it.
figure it out. I'm going to be working on that today, as a matter of fact. So we will definitely get that out there. It might be a name issue. It might be looking at the wrong name on Apple. If that's the case, simple fix, I hope.
yeah, we'll get that figured out. But it's going to go to all the usual places. Feel free to share it with people. And again, comment, send us emails as long as it's not a crazy amount of questions. Then we'll be happy to help you out. Right, we will see you.
No books.
Yeah, no books, no things that
We
aren't
do not
related
build
to flight sim.
simulators, okay? We're not building sims. Stop asking us how to build one, okay? Y'all have a good day.
That's not our job. We'll see you. We'll see you all later. Bye bye.